doing that right
14
now?
million people.
There are over 1,000 Taliban and ISKP operatives in the United States.
We let too many people in this country that we don't even know who's here.
By the virtue of abandoning 98 to 99% of our intelligence capability and our commandos and our special ops,
We need to be running against this threat.
There are over 1,000 Taliban and ISKP operatives in the United States. And this 1,000 are not the individuals that were emboldened after the United States abandoned Afghanistan and withdrew. These are not the individuals in the Afghan American community, in the diaspora, or those we brought in, 120,000 that were evacuated. They're not members of those communities who are now sympathetic towards the Taliban. The 1,000 or so that I mentioned, these are deep cover operatives that report to Sirajuddin Haqqani and then the leadership of the Taliban and ISKP.
And where's this intel coming from?
The anti-Taliban resistance.
Who's running that?
There are several resistance fronts. You met Commander Ahmad Massoud, the leader of the National Resistance Front. There's also President Amrullah Saleh, who's leading Afghanistan Green Trend.
And can you talk about him? That's where I was going with this.
President Saleh?
Yes.
Of course, yes. Well, the man needs no introduction, but I'll do my best. He has been fighting in the resistance one way or another since I think he was 15 or 16 from what I've seen. He did intelligence liaison work under the leadership of Commander Ahmad Shah Massoud, who led the resistance against the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and then against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. President Mr. Saleh at that point did liaison work. For him, he led intelligence. And then after the United States went into Afghanistan in 2001, he became the head of Afghanistan's intelligence, the National Directorate of Security.
So that's the Afghan version of the Central Intelligence Agency.
Correct. America helped build it in Afghanistan. The head of that intelligence unit, NDS, was Mr. Saleh. He literally built that NDS in Afghanistan. I don't think there's any American intelligence official that is unfamiliar with Mr. Saleh. He was, and I believe he still is, our ally. And so after that, he became the Minister of Interior in Afghanistan. And then after that, he started AGT in 2011, which is Afghanistan Green Trend, which is one of the main political parties in Afghanistan. Grassroots movement, had millions of members inside Afghanistan. In, I believe it was 2019, Mr. Saleh won the elections and became the first vice president of Afghanistan under the Ghani administration. Ashraf Ghani was the president. Mr. Saleh was his vice president. And so on August 15, 2021, when Mr. Ghani, the former president, fled Afghanistan to Dubai and abandoned everything, Mr. Saleh, Vice President Saleh, did not flee Afghanistan. He instead went to Panjshir Valley, which was the only province that had not fallen to the Taliban. And he declared a national resistance against the Taliban. And because Mr. Ghani had fled, according to our Article 60 and 67 of the Constitution of Afghanistan, Mr. Saleh became the acting president of Afghanistan. Mr. Saleh, President Saleh now, his time in office ended in July of 2024, just a few months ago. And so he, being a spy, I think spies never quit. And so he went back to just like Sarah Adams doesn't quit, spies don't quit. He went back to leading intelligence in Afghanistan, and his network is operational in Afghanistan. And I don't think anyone has as much sources under his control as Mr. Saleh in that region.
So that's where a lot of this info's coming from.
Correct. He runs, he's correct. Yes. Yes.
And I think it's important to note here too, because a lot of folks, to your question, they're watching this and they're like, okay, well, these are, veterans getting this. Like, why aren't we getting this from the intelligence community, or why aren't we getting this from the formal institutions? And one thing I'll just give as an example, Legend won't talk about it, but Mr. Saleh was abandoned, just like a whole bunch of other Afghan assets were abandoned on August 15th. We're talking 98 to 99% of the human intelligence assets in Afghanistan that took 20 years to build were left behind. And this is coming from the former CENTCOM commander, right? What happened was a lot of veterans like Legend, who had pre-existing relationships, found ways to do humanitarian outreach in those moments to fill the gap because no one else was picking up the phone. And also had the foresight as an intelligence guy to say, well, it's probably not a good idea to leave Mr. Saleh out there on his own. And so over these last several years, Legend has cultivated a relationship, and really done the job. And I just don't know any other way to say it, right? Done the job of what a formal intelligence agency would normally do with a massive asset like that. So now you've got literally the guy who is regarded as the father of Afghanistan intelligence talking primarily to an Afghan-American Army, U.S. Army NCO. And that's where that primary relationship took place. Now, multiply that, Shawn, at scale. You have Sarah Adams doing her version of that, me doing my version of that with Afghan Special Forces and commandos. And that's what's evolved over the last 4 years, is by the virtue of abandoning 98 to 99% of our intelligence capability and our commandos and our special ops. The veteran community stepped into the breach and took over those relationships for primarily humanitarian reasons. But here we are 4 years later, and what you have is high veracity intelligence and reporting coming through these channels instead of formal channels.
So you say we've lost 98 to 99% of all intelligence coming from Afghanistan.
Human intelligence.
Human intelligence. So why would we just why isn't U.S. intelligence agencies, why aren't they keeping in communication with them if this is such a big?
They have communication. They are bringing intelligence, but it's from the Taliban. So we lost 98 to 99% of our collection and our assets we developed over 20 years. We're now bringing in reporting, but it's from the Taliban. The Taliban is now the source of the U.S. government and the source of counterterrorism information in Afghanistan.
So we're now
they
in
changed
cahoots
the
with the
sourcing.
GDI.
Yes, so that's who we get intelligence from, and from Sirajuddin Haqqani. We're not going to see that happen here, and that's very, very dangerous, especially when we're talking about just the numbers that came in illegally. But remember, our State Department has been issuing passports and visas to Haqqani network guys. Plenty of former CIA officers have provided tips to the government over the last 4 years. They haven't picked them up. They live in our communities. They know Haqqanis are here, right? So that's not just the terrorists who came here under fake IDs and are undercover, right? So to understand just how many are in our country is really scary. And yes, we're starting to close the border, but we now need to go back and re-vet everybody we went in the last 4 years. And I've heard no discussions about that happening yet, but like that needs to happen. And
Who? Revet who we gave passports and visas to?
Yeah.
Or revet everybody that crossed the border?
and cross the border, especially.
I think we're kind of doing that. Isn't Tom Homan
it was
doing that right
14
now?
million people. So we're not doing it. And what I was saying to an intel agency just a week ago, I said, we need to be running against this threat. Like, this needs to be fast forward. The toughest thing we ever did, we need to basically take almost like it's a crisis, right? And, you take a bunch of people and you throw them at the hurricane to help, right? We need to pull in, I don't care if it's retired people, we need to put 10,000 people re-vetting all these. I'm serious, like, we're at that point, we let too many people in this country that we don't even know who's here. Like, we're not picking up and deporting fast enough. And Trump says that himself. Like, he understands, right, the magnitude of when you're talking 14 million. But I don't think people are understanding there's a chunk in that are the terrorists, and we have to go just as fast at the terrorists as we're doing against Venezuelan gangs. Like, this is super important.
I mean, It seems like Homan, Border Patrol, ICE all seem to be very busy to me. So you don't think they're moving fast enough. I mean, how would they move faster? It's only been what?
Well, they're moving fast enough, right, on
little
like
over a month.
Venezuelan gangs, but who's doing the vetting to identify the terrorists? Right? That's not Tom Homan's job. Right? He needs that from the intelligence community. Like, that FBI needs to be stepping up and doing that. DHS needs to be playing a role, right? Like, we need to see, honestly, probably some sort of task force come together to do that.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly